She was Sheikh Hamdan's girlfriend for 5 years. Then his family destroyed it 5 years. Not a brief encounter. Not a passing feeling that arrived and left before it had time to become something real. 5 years of mornings and evenings and ordinary days, and the specific accumulation of shared experience that turns two people from individuals into something that belongs to both of them. 5 years of learning someone, of being learned by someone, of building the kind of familiarity and trust and genuine intimacy that only time produces, that cannot be manufactured or rushed or created by any amount for feeling in the absence of the months and years that make feeling into something structural. She had 5 years with Sheikh Hamdan, 5 years of being the person he came back to, the person who knew the real version of him in the specific detailed way that only comes from that much time. And then his family had destroyed it, not gradually, not with any particular consideration for what 5 years means to two people who have spent them together efficiently, completely, in the way that institutions destroy things when the things being destroyed are inconvenient to the plan, without drama, without apology, and without any apparent awareness of the scale of what was being taken apart. She had not started those 5 years expecting them to end this way. Nobody starts 5 years expecting to end up at the conclusion she arrived at. When you commit that much time to a person, when you reorganize your life around the fact of someone, when you make the hundreds of small daily decisions that loving someone produces, and that slowly, incrementally, make your life into a shape that has them at the center, you do it with the assumption that the investment is moving in a direction toward something, toward the permanent thing that 5 years of that kind of investment is supposed to eventually produce. She had that assumption. She held it through the first year and the second and the third, and into the fourth and fifth, when the investment had become so large and so embedded in the daily texture of her life that the idea of it not producing the permanent thing had become genuinely unthinkable. Hamdan had given her reason to hold it. That is the detail that makes the destruction of what they had not just painful but specifically cruel, in the way that cruelty is always most acute when it is not intended. He was not performing with her. The 5 years were real on his side too. The feelings were genuine. The commitment she experienced as coming from him during those years was not a management of her expectations designed to serve his convenience. It was actual. He actually loved her. Actually wanted the thing they were building to become what it was building toward. The poems from that period carry the fingerprints of a man who was not in the middle of a passing feeling, but in the middle of something he intended to be permanent. And she felt that intention. It was part of what made 5 years possible. You cannot sustain 5 years on a feeling that does not feel like it is pointing somewhere. His family's awareness of the situation built slowly over that time. Or rather, their willingness to act on their awareness built slowly. They had known. Families like his always know. The private life of a crown prince is never as private as it appears from the outside, and the people whose job it is to understand the full picture of what is happening in the life of the person who will one day lead the family are very good at their jobs. They knew about her. They had known for longer than she probably understood at the time. And for a period, whether out of the calculation that the feeling would pass on its own, or out of the judgment that the moment to act had not yet arrived, they did not move. They moved in the fifth year. The teaming was not accidental. By the fifth year, the relationship had reached a point of maturity and seriousness that made it no longer possible to dismiss as a passing phase that the plan could simply wait out. She was not going anywhere. He was not showing any signs of the feeling diminishing on its own. And the window for the arranged marriage that Sheikh Mohammed had decided was the correct next chapter for his son's life was not going to remain open indefinitely. The moment to act had arrived. And Sheikh Mohammed, who does not miss moments, acted. What happened was not a single confrontation. It never is with families like his. It was a process, a series of conversations and pressures and clarifications of what the expectations were and what the consequences of not meeting those expectations would be, communicated through the channels that royal families use when they need to make something clear without making it official. Hamdan was told, in whatever form the telling took, that the 5 years had been permitted to run as long as they had, and that the time had come for the next chapter to begin. The next chapter did not include her. It included Sheikha bint Said al Thani, the cousin, the alliance. The strategic correct answer to the question of who the crown prince of Dubai was going to spend his official life with. She found out that the 5 years were ending not through a conversation with Hamdan, not initially, but through the specific quality of change in him that people can feel in someone they know well when something significant has shifted in the direction they are facing. The withdrawal, the distraction. The way a person looks when they are carrying a decision they have not yet said out loud, but that has already been made in the part of themselves that cannot undo what the family has set in motion. She felt it before she knew it, and then she knew it. And the knowing was the end of the 5 years in a way that nothing about the 5 years had prepared her for. The family destroyed it the way institutions destroy things, without touching it directly, without a dramatic scene or an official announcement or any of the visible forms of ending that would have given the ending a shape she could hold and examine and eventually make some kind of peace. They created the conditions that made the continuation impossible. They applied the pressures that redirected Hamdan toward the outcome they had decided on. And the 5 years, real and substantial and built from the specific accumulated weight of that much shared time, came apart without anyone from the institution that destroyed it acknowledging that they had destroyed anything at all. She was left with the pieces of a life that had been organized around someone who had been redirected away from her by forces she had no power to resist. 5 years of investment that produced, in the end, not the permanent thing she had been building toward, but an exit. Quiet, unacknowledged. Without the apology or the recognition or the simple basic acknowledgement that what had been taken apart was something real, and that the taking apart of it had cost someone who deserved better than the cost she was asked to pay. His family destroyed it, and somewhere out there she is living with that, with the specific weight of 5 years that became nothing official, 5 years that the world will never know about, 5 years that exist only in the private archive of a love story that the official story of Sheikh Hamdan has never been authorized to tell. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Every week I bring you the real story of Sheikh Hamdan, the relationships that lasted, the families that destroyed them, and the women who deserved so much more than the ending they were given.